looks like I'm live. I don't know how long it really does take. Seems like it's, I don't know, 5-10 seconds before it really picks up. But welcome back to another episode of The Maturity Project. I'm your host, Sir Chad Everett Broshears. Some, if you know, you know, and or Chad Everett Broshears to the majority. All right. Well, today's conversation, there's a couple of things I wanted to talk about. There's some stuff going on as far as abuse of power in some ways. You know, like there's certain things like with my child's daycare, we have a new director, and for me, if you tell me something along the lines of, you know, like if my child's misbehaving, you know, and when I read the report of what's being said about him seems highly dramatized, asking for evidence of, so that I know that my child won't be abused by putting him through punishment versus putting, you know, disciplining. This is a big difference between the two. Is the effect is different, and the outcome can truly be detrimental, you know, instead of beneficial. Asking for the video of it, since it's a, you know, daycare that, you know, it is required to have video footage, and then be denied. You know, there's ways of vetting things to find out if there's complete honesty about something or if there's exaggeration, things like that. And so addressing that, and then looking at what would drive a person to get to that point, to make claims about a 2-year-old. And from my experiences, you know, I've dated teachers, you know, and found that, you know, there's they're entrusted with a degree of responsibility over, you know, children for their well-being, their development, all of this. And then to have them utilizing their access to children as a, like how they treat them, to be a way of kind of an outlet for their stress, a coping mechanism. So like picking on them or coming up with a method that is kind of their own form of bullying. And that's what I'm reminded of. And instead of jumping to conclusions, which is my preference is not to jump to conclusions. But if you put something out that, you know, really does seem dramatized, so to me, you really need to understand the details of what is happening in order to create the correct discipline. Because punishment is the last thing you want to do. And there's things about punishment, actually, that can be for another conversation. But at least for this one, the difference between discipline and punishment, in case people are confused about this, discipline is directly associated with, in a connection to a behavior or something that requires correction. Typically it's a behavior, but it could be a statement or something like that also, with language, thinking processes, whatever. Discipline is to, you know, correct that. So you associate what the corrective actions are, the corrective thinking, whatever that might be, with what they did, but it also comes with why it's important not to do a specific thing or think a certain way or whatever. So you give the corrective values associated with the incident. Punishment looks the same on the surface for a lot of people, but punishment can be completely disassociated with the cause, whatever the reason is for the perceived concept of discipline. But it completely can be wrong or off, right? A kind of a cheeky example of this is in my youth, my younger brother, Craig, who is just under 2 years younger than me. He and I were riding in the back of my mother's car, and we were probably, I don't know, I think I may have been 8 or 9 years old at the time. And so therefore Craig was, you know, 6 or 7. And we're in the back, mom's driving, and I'm sitting directly behind my mother. And my brother's sitting to the right of me behind the passenger seat. Nobody's in the passenger seat. Just the two of us are sitting in the back. That's it. And I'm looking out the window, and we're listening to, I believe it was Randy Travis or something like that, because my mom was a big fan. And I enjoyed the music too, and I'd ask to listen to certain songs and things like that. And I'm looking out the window, and it's kind of like just in my own little world, Mom's driving, she's doing her thing, not really interacting with us or whatever, just listening to music and kind of doing the same, like in her own little world. And then my brother Craig gets in his head that he's bored and he wants to create mischief, because Craig was known for that in his youth too, be a little mischievous little guy. And he backhands me into the arm. So he smacks me in the arm. And he immediately goes, "Chad, don't hit me." And I'm like, okay, all right. It was stupid, and it was like, whatever. And I look back out the window again. And a few seconds goes by and he does it again, and he's hitting me loud enough to hear it. And then following it up with, "Chad, stop hitting me." Well, this happened, I think it was the third time that it happened. I want to say my mom interjects and says, "Chad, stop hitting Craig." And I'm like, that's stupid. Like, it's really stupid. But I'm telling myself, I'm not gonna argue it. It's just so stupid. I'm not gonna argue with it. As far as like Craig making the claim, not my mom. I told my mom immediately, "I'm not hitting him," and Craig immediately follows up with, "Yes, you are." So now Craig's the baby. He's the youngest of 6 boys, and he's like, "Yes, you are." I'm like, what the hell? And I'm like, and I start laughing because it's so ridiculous to me. And my mom gets mad at me. And then a few seconds goes by, and my mom's looking back at the road because Craig is watching the mirror to see where her eyes are. And as soon as she looks back to the road and stops looking at us, he hits me again. It says, "Stop hitting me." And I'm like, this is so stupid. And my mom's like, "Oh, Chad, I'm going to pull this car over. I'm going to spank you." She's losing her mind about it. And I'm sitting there going, this is so stupid. I'm like, "Mom, he's saying that he's hitting me, or that I'm hitting him, but he's the one hitting me." Now, I said this is a cheeky example. It was ridiculous initially to me. But then there was my mom had heard in her mind, I needed corrective behavior or a corrective conditioning because I was doing something that was not acceptable. Now, the outcome of that wasn't too big. My mom got frustrated. Craig eventually stopped, but it turned into something. But I will tell you what it did do is it took boredom away from Craig. And actually it got us all centrally focused on something. But I was actually punished in the scenario. Now, that's not a ridiculous punishment. It's not like, I was abused or anything like that. It's discipline's not abuse, by the way. Punishment is abuse, but it's at what type of level is that abuse? Oh shit. Sorry there, buddy. So anyway, yeah, so that's one form of it. But another is just, you do not need to be the person, and you don't even have to be involved. You could be, let's say you're the person that walks around the corner after something happens just because of the fact that you were the first person to walk around the corner. You're then blamed for whatever has happened, and then there's some sort of attempt to discipline to stop that from happening again, whatever it is. Could be a work situation, it could be a personal situation, it could be law enforcement, whatever. And then there's you were responsible for whatever, and you now need to prove that you're innocent. If it's law enforcement today, it's actually in any instance. You still have to prove that you're innocent. But the other person might be fixated, or whoever the authority in the situation is could be fixated that you're guilty. It's often what we do is we create narratives, and these narratives support events. The way that a narrative supports events, though, is it's an attitude and a viewpoint of the event versus without the narratives can lead the exposure of whatever happened. It can be like, this person's a bad person, and then therefore now that they're looking for bad person confirmation as their narrative. So now. Yeah, so as far as narratives go, they're common. They happen all the damn time. We do it. We all have them, all of us, and we have different narratives for different scenarios and different situations, and we play a different role in different ones depending on exactly how that's associated with our life. So now that example of Craig hitting me, that's cheeky. It's silly. I still to this day think it's absolutely ridiculous, but I remember it because I was punished in that scenario. Now it wasn't significant directly, but to what that did to other events that I could or could not have been like responsible for it. I'm not going to say that I was an angel child. That definitely wasn't. But I was not known to be the one that would do something like that either. But it wasn't that it was so ridiculously out of character that my mom's like, that's not like Chad. No, because we were 6 boys. We didn't have cable. We had 3 or 4 channels on television, and we weren't allowed to watch TV all day. We had other stuff we needed to do, or we got bored with TV, so we did stuff. So we had mischief and stuff like that to kind of keep us entertained, and things moving along in life. Do what boys do. But anyway, so taking this back to the example about the situation with this daycare, and this is not a vent or an attack on the daycare necessarily. That's not my intention for this. I'm using a situation in my life that creates something for us all to kind of look at and to say that's different vantage points and how to deal with certain things and all of that. Anytime there's an accusation that's made that you're not a witness to and you need to be the person that delivers discipline, so corrective actions or corrective thinking, some corrective method, you really want to fully understand or best understand the situation that needs the correction. I'm not saying don't, because you don't know, don't do something. You need to look into to figure out what happened. The outcome to discipline is correction. And then you hone your skill for correction, especially as you get to know the personality and the overall personality values of the individual that you're working with. Now, on the other side, punishment will be the receiving end of something you genuinely did not do or you're not responsible for, and you don't associate responsibility with what's going on. That can run into a lot of challenges, because then you have the potential to go into, well, if I'm a bad kid, the scenario, if I'm a bad kid, then there's a good chance I'm going to eventually get tired and worn down because I don't want to be a bad kid. But I have a title now, and there's a way that people treat me based off that title, because that title is associated with the narrative that has been given. And then there's the continuation of that narrative being built into a reality for other people, because especially in daycares, places like that, there's a strong tendency to create drama because of ruminating on things or not. It's drama is a form of entertainment for a lot of people, and it has entertainment values because it distracts people from whatever they're going through. It gives them something to work on that breaks boredom. So it's like in this scenario, one teacher says this kid's a bad kid, then another starts looking for evidence to why. And you may have that particular teacher or that caretaker or whatever may have a position to say, you know what, but I don't feel that way, I don't think so. Then that's a counter narrative, right? Then they can kind of go at each other in a way that tries to flesh out what's true. But it doesn't mean that neither one of them will ever get to each other's opinions. It just means that they don't agree with each other. So what happens though is that once it can become an infectious idea. And if it becomes an infectious idea, then it will lock that person in place to be treated in a certain way that eventually begs that person to behave that way. And they usually use this retaliation. You're going to call me that? I'm going to be it then. I've been telling you I'm not that person, but because you called me that, you continue to tell me that, and you continue to treat me that way, if that's what you say I am, now you're going to get it. No, and then there's an entire reward sequence to it, because finally there's a sense of relief for the behavior. So you get the tea kettle finally gets to reduce some of that pressure. No, because they've finally been so frustrated, they're now able to have an outlet for it. And then there's the other rewards, which is that I feel better. I feel better, or that was kind of fun. and it pushes bad behavior into that individual or societally poor behavior. Now, that's most common, like what you typically see. There's the other side, though. For people that make false accusations, that is bad behavior. That is bad thinking, and or societally, it is dysfunctional and poor for society. So you don't, like, I am not one that will discipline somebody when another person manifests that thing, because I am not going to create punishment. So I will not do that. I also am way too critical of a thinker for somebody else to do the thinking for me. That's why I ask for evidence. I need to understand, because I have to associate the corrections with the actions or the thinking. And if I can't have access to that, then I'm not going to punish, because I will not default that. Now, if it is the behavior and it truly did happen, then it will show up again. It's not a one-time occurrence, and then I have something I can work with. Now, yes, it can increase the strength of that particular action, thought, or whatever the overall is. It can increase it, but now I can truly associate correction with the cause. Like, it's directly associated to the cause. Why are you being corrected? I can teach you now. I can teach you why it's a problem for society. I can teach you the thinking processes associated with what you're going through. And we can dig into root causation for that. But when you're dealing with a 2-year-old, there's not a whole lot of the complexity in the rationale behind it. You can also have, because it's a 2-year-old boy, if people expect all 2-year-olds to behave like 2-year-old girls, 2-year-old girls are more, on average, they're more calm and more submissive than 2-year-old boys. Now, so authority has an easier time with 2-year-old girls, on average. So if you expect all children to behave that way, you're in the wrong business, because they need to have the ability to express things. There's also like this anti-bullying movement that's going on. I vehemently disagree with it. It is us playing this bullshit God-eyed complex thing where, like, oh, everything can be brought up this way or that way. No, people need to have challenges, and they also need to have timelines whenever a challenge occurs, how to overcome it without the interjection of somebody else coming in to put a victim persona on it. Even to say you do victimize somebody as soon as you tell them, yeah, that shouldn't happen to you. That is a lesser level of victimizing, but you're starting to plant the seed that you're a victim. Don't do that. Now, it is unfortunate that that happened to you, and we'd like to not see it happen again. Let's work on what's necessary not to have it happen again. Skill set, trait values, that's the direction with that second statement. First statement, nope. That is not what's being said. So the first one says something's wrong, somebody else is responsible, we need to do something about it. And it's an interjection. You don't let the person actually grow up. It's a form of helicopter parenting, or it's actually kind of helicopter authority. It's a stupid ass movement. It is, again, like, we've tried it. We should be better than this now. So when people say, don't bully me, I'm like, grow the fuck up. Okay? Grow the fuck up. If you feel you're being bullied, you need to talk your way through. You need to understand what's necessary, and it's time for you to do something about it that is on you, because that's an opportunity for growth. Now, people are like, well, what about suicide? If you care about suicide, you need to do your research into suicide. You have to. Because right now, if you don't already know this, I will share it with you. It was covered in Site 101, by the way. It's very simplistic and very early on. For the places that had not had suicide prevention in their at any point in time as a campaign, when it came in with the best of intentions, suicide rates went up significantly, and this is across the board. It's not a one-off. It's not in the majority. It is across the board. Reason for that is because prior to suicide, and the way that it's taught is that it becomes a retaliatory behavior, even though they're like, don't do it, don't do it. That's not how retaliation is learned. Don't do it. What it is there's a depth, there's a weight value on what happens, and there's a way of feeling vindicated over what happened. So now they can actually, it makes sense to them to go and do it. So if you don't know about it, study it, look into it. There is a lot of things that we do as a species that come from good intentions that create bad outcomes. Once you teach people that suicide is a retaliatory behavior, now it's going to go up, because that's a recourse when they feel like they don't have options. When the reality is somebody just needs to teach them how to deal with a bully. Comedians are very funny on average, the majority of them, because they were bullied into a position to be funny. Fighters, you hear it often with fighters. I was tired of getting beat up. Then they become a better fighter. Intellectuals, tired of feeling less than others. Whatever it is, you look at what they chose to do and what they chose to develop themselves into. So this whole playing God thing, we got to watch out for that stuff, because every time we break from the habit of being a human being and we get into this higher preferential thinking where we believe that we know better than so many others and that we can change human nature. Once we try to change human nature is where we find out we fucked up, and we fucked up bad. But what it is, we get this stuff so well ingrained, it becomes part of our common speak. And what happens from there? People will look at you and go, "Oh, you're crazy. Oh, I can't believe you think that way." Free thinking, man. You gotta look into stuff. Be prepared to grow. Be prepared to learn. So why not? Teach how to take on challenges. If you want to be able to give your child one of the best things in life that you could possibly do, teach them how to take on challenges with grace, which initially grace is not present whenever the first time you try to take on a challenge, unless you have stoicism assists grace, patience assists grace. All 8 areas of maturity will assist generating grace. So there's a lot there to unpack. But teach children how to have, and teach others, for yourself too, handling challenges. So if you feel that you're emotionally reactive and you're just caught up immediately, there's your work, man. That's what you got to do, and focus on it. Like, first off, realizing what you're going through, and then look at where it's coming from. But first, you got to get the bigger picture of what you're going through. I mean, some people may already know where it's coming from, but if you don't put the weight of what you're currently going through on it, you may not do much to change it. So, but if you have the weight of what you're currently going through associated with where it comes from, there's a pretty good chance you're going to change that. And then you can build a habit of it. Where I'm at now, I'm in a habit of it, man. I'm obsessed with it. If I find out where I'm frustrated or where I'm dealing with things, I can repeat the patterns of the past and continue to solidify and strengthen the reaction that I have, which in this scenario, I am going to not really care as much for that outcome as trying to better the outcome and better the who I am for that outcome. So that's the goal, is to constantly grow. That's my goal. I'm absolutely obsessed with it. Because it's, why the hell not? Now, it would have been wonderful if I had the same mentality and the same level of maturity for this in my 20s, but I didn't, and I really don't think I could have. Because I still need a lot of life lessons to get to that point. That's the weighted value of the way life has occurred to me, and I'm just done with it. I know my outcome in those situations, and I am not interested in continuing those outcomes. I want different, and I'll have different, because I'll do different. So that's it for today. It's really come up with something. If anything, I'll touch on the other thing again, as far as when you have people of authority and they're abusing their authority, they don't always know it. Why people get to the point where they find an outlet to basically abuse children by picking on them or putting them into categories where they have these narratives built in. Those kind of things, look, man, they happen. The people that do it very rarely realize that they're actually doing something that's more associated with evil. No, it's bad, it's harmful. They don't realize it because they have their own challenges and they're caught up in it. And this is a stress reliever. And it typically doesn't start off in anything egregious. On average, it actually typically starts off fairly low end, if you will. The egregious comes in after it gets strengthened by, continuous repetition of the behavior, the expression, the coping mechanism that the adult or the authority has. This is the exact same issue of abuse of power in every aspect, especially the less regulated, the less observed and managed. So if it's not being managed from above, or having somebody that actually has supervisory positioning to understand what's going on and is responsible for that, the less of that you have, the more likely you create these feral behaviors. Feral in the wild, not organized and structured in a way that's overall better, which is what you could really get to non-feral. But there's a lot of benefit in feral too, because you get a lot of challenges that you take on in a unique way that may actually be better than the preferred way. But it's replicatable is the thing that's usually an issue for feral behavior or feral thinking. But it's still, there's nothing wrong with it. I'm not going to down that, as much as it just has a multitude of different outcomes. You still have different outcomes when you go through more of an organized approach to things, because everyone's a little bit different to see the world differently. But you have more of a controllable outcome because you still have a point of focus that you can bring them back to and say, no, I get that you understand that, but you don't understand this. Let's get back to it. And you redirect them and developing them into the understanding. That's a beautiful thing about having organized education versus, just learning it in the world ferally, because you'll make up all kinds of meanings. It's harder to hold a true north, if you will, in those scenarios. But then the benefit of them are it can come up with a new way that actually becomes the standard, because it's so effective, much more than the current standing method or methods. So anyway, not to go down that rabbit trail necessarily, but just to throw that into the mix. But as I said, that's it for today's episode. Authorities that lose that oversight can become abusive very quickly. And education systems, even if it's in preschool or daycare, they still have some challenges. There's human beings in everything. People don't like to be challenged. They don't, the majority, especially if it's something that they feel that that's unjustified. So if you have people on a power trip and you challenge them, that really infuriates them, which I've got no problem with it, because fuck your view. We need to talk about what's real there. And if you can't take somebody challenging your view, you're the one that has the problem. And that's probably because your view is weak. So it's time to actually do better. So let's get after it. Share this video with people in your life that you would like to break the ice with. If you got something out of today's video, put it in the comment section. Don't forget to like the video. It helps me with the algorithm. And subscribe to the channel. It really does help. So every single subscription will help move this thing along to the point that it becomes, more refined. I'll come up with better content and have my own practice for opportunities there. We're all in this together, man. So it's a matter of how well we do it. And our professional approach to it will come by how much we care to make a difference, and we'll develop ourselves for that. So I hope you join me in that. So always be growing, ABG. Now, look, we got a world to address, but we really need to take care of ourselves first, work on ourselves, because the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And if we keep up what we're doing, we're making a super highway there. So we need to break that pattern. So join me in that effort, okay? All right, until next time, this is The Maturity Project. I am your host, Chad Everett Broshears, or Sir Chad Everett Broshears to some. If you know, you know. And we'll catch you next time. Let's get to it. See ya. I can't have